If anything, might be worth taking a look at what some of the governments, some of the measures that governments are looking to take to implement your overall digital presence, and if anything, how they're looking to for you in the first place to identify yourself, and some of the metrics that they would like to collect about you if they haven't already. Just having as much information about all individuals as possible. Digital IDs or digital identities are electronic representation of individuals or entities' identity used to verify and authorize their online presence. So we're looking to authorize and verify. So we're looking to, that sounds like a lot like we're looking to control something, because right now everything works just fine. Just fine like it is. And they're looking to perhaps monitor things like your shopping habits, how you're spending your money, where you're spending your money, and perhaps preventing you from having access to some of the freedoms that you're exercising right now, if anything, because they would like to control that if it can, right? These digital identities are essential in the digital age for a variety of purposes, including online security. So this is what they're looking to make a pitch, right? So this is what they're looking to protect you and save, guard you from purchasing too much food, I guess. Then there was a lockdown measures, right? So a lot of people can perhaps access just X, right? Just 12 access. So perhaps they could purchase more than 12, right? So that's not necessarily good, right? Some people perhaps looking need to stay on a diet more, right? So if anything, that's my takeaways about my understanding, my opinions when it comes to that, and some of the governments looking to control the large groups of people and how they're looking to do that for a variety of purposes, including online security, access control, and identity verification. Yeah, some of the key points: understanding about digital IDs. What is a digital ID? A digital ID is a set of electronic data that uniquely represents an individual or entity. It typically includes information such as person's name, date of birth, address, and other relevant information. Authentication and verification. Digital IDs are used to verify and authenticate a person's or entity's identity in various online or offline transactions. This can include logging in website, accessing online services, signing digital documents, and more. It's already in some countries, particularly in Europe, it's already been implemented. You can only sign some of the documents using digital ID. So I don't know if it's anything new, or perhaps it's something new for others more than the other people, but as well as perhaps what are actually those companies who are collecting that information, right? But either way, so there's a lot of obstacles there, as well as how we're looking to control the entire process. Let's take a look at types of IDs. Government issued IDs. Many countries issue digital versions of traditional identification documents like driver license or passports. Corporate IDs. Organizations issuing digital IDs to employees or members of secure access to their systems and resources. Self-issued IDs. Individuals can create and manage their own digital identities, often used to decentralized identity systems. Well, either way, what's happening in the US, I'm not entirely sure if they have some kind of numbers already. So perhaps they taking an example from other countries, right? So having those numbers, and we're just using the same examples in Europe now, if anything. So it's perhaps for some people it's nothing new. Certificates these contain public keys and serve as a cryptographic proof of identity. I'm not entirely sure if I'm covering this subject in the best possible way. Uh, I would highly recommend for all the people out there to do your own research and trying to understand what's actually happening up there. Quick disclaimer, right? So, if anything, I would prefer if don't know, people tend to grab as much control as they can, as well as keep all the control as they can. And if they can monitor that, especially these days, and monitoring can be outsourced to different software solutions there. So I'm not necessarily agree with that, but it's already been happening in other countries like in Asia, perhaps in the US as well, and something perhaps new for some people what's happening in Europe. So that's my own understanding. Biometric data, some digital IDs use biometric information like fingerprints or facial recognition for authentication. Because again, I don't know if you would like to prefer to vote with, if you can, with your phone or with particular software. Perhaps you need to identify yourself. But again, that can be used against you somewhere down the line where they can try to control a population, right? So I don't know. I prefer so people to have more freedom where they can potentially vote, and instead of outsourcing that to just small group of people. But again, so there's pros and cons to everything, I guess. Personal data, basic personal information that can be verified, like names, date of birth, and addresses. So if that small group of people would give control back to the people, then I would agree with all this digital ID, perhaps. So, right, so people can vote with on their phones, not necessarily need to go in the building and pay so much. I don't know, depending on the country, how many political leaders they have within that country, 100 or so, and how expensive that is for entire population to pay for those people. And those people only operate based on their personal interest. So again, so I see a lot of obstacles there. Like some of the challenges and concerns, have been trying to highlight some of the concerns that I myself have, but other people might have different concerns and perhaps as well as challenges. Perhaps beginning with privacy, storing and sharing personal information online can lead to privacy concerns, which is a big issue, right? Security. If not properly secure, digital IDs can be vulnerable to hackers or theft. Especially some of the governments up there within Europe that I have reached out to, and they asked me to register with some random company that would probably share all my ID and identification, all ID, my fingerprints, everything with those company. It's just from my experience, those countries would ask me to set up that, would not necessarily with local companies, would outsource that to other companies outside those jurisdictions. I don't know what's happening there. I don't know. So this is my personal experience when it comes to security and how they're currently managing those IDs. I'm not necessarily agree with that. So this is what's happening. And overall standardization, the interoperability of digital IDs across different systems and platforms is an ongoing challenge. Standardization is perhaps that's something that perhaps having a system, having perhaps system in place, process, understanding the process. So we're just keeping everything organized. So you need to start somewhere, right? To get your things organized. But I'm not necessarily agree with the way how they're doing it. Digital ID initiatives. Government digital IDs. Many governments are implementing digital ID systems to facilitate online services and secure identity verification. If governments, so that's a part that I agree on, outsourcing everything perhaps to the best extent to technology. So people don't need to sit that and fill in paperwork perhaps. I agree with this part. So there would not necessarily people required to sit there in a large building, and we would need to pay a lot to those services, right? Perhaps a couple of techie dudes, if anything, solving all the problems, and that would be software solution guys, right? So they would solve the software, not necessarily they would get into allocating of capital, their own personal opinions, how to manage the government. Instead of those people deciding that, perhaps people can decide how to manage everything. So I agree with this part. Overall, blockchain-based IDs. I don't know everyone, but either way. So the blockchain technology, for those who don't know, are perhaps worth covering that in more detail. But blockchain-based IDs, some projects use blockchain technology to secure and decentralized identity management. Decentralized, okay, okay. But again, are they really, this is how what's happening, not from my experience, not from some of the documents that I have read, that this is what they're doing, right? Single sign-on, SSO, the services like top tech giants who are collecting that information. Again, that's I mentioned. So what are we talking about? Decentralized, right? Without promoting any of those companies, but you can imagine what those companies are offering digital IDs for signing in across multiple websites. So yeah, I guess collecting all information across the multiple websites. If any takeaways, perhaps that will be future trends. Biometrics, more reliance on biometric data for identity verification. So that would be something like a fingerprint, facial recognition, or similar metrics that could be picked up by perhaps your local cameras or when you're walking down the street. Decentralized identity. Decentralized identity systems where individuals can more would have more control over their digital IDs. Decentralized, perhaps they would have more control, but they would still give away some of the control. Worth mentioning. Mobile IDs, increased use of mobile devices for digital identity management. Or perhaps that would be future ideas how people can have digital presence just by using their phone. So not necessarily going into a building or writing their opinion on paper and putting it into a ballot, right? So they can express their thoughts, ideas, beliefs on the phones and perhaps organize communities and make things happen for better of everyone. Uh, People out there who are interested in learning more, I have published a book or journal. In this journal, I'm sharing all the information for people out there who are looking to begin where to start when it comes to perhaps organizing their own time, you having a schedule, organizing that, as well as having small routines where to begin, right? Quarterly, so that would be something that you would work from cover to cover. So those some of these habits, so you can pick up those and improve your daily routines. So hopefully you can become more effective, more productive when it comes to accomplishing whatever, wherever you are heading, whatever goals you might set for yourself, right? So having those routines would help you to develop some of those areas. I have identified a number of different areas. If anything, I'm looking to structure everything around time, 24 hours. I'm making most of those 24 hours, and I have identified areas which I personally believe are very important. You can find it in the description below, as well as Top Details has it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.